Hello everyone, this is the third video of Cameo MagicDraw plugin development lessons. Today's topic is working with UML models. My name is Zsolt and I will be your host today. So let's get started with today's topic, which is how to create model elements into your model. So right now, we already have a plugin. We already have some kind of actions that the user can press. What we would like to do is to create some model elements inside our model. In order to do that, we have to create a session. A session represents a series of actions as a single transaction. Then we will start with the creation of the various model elements. We will create a class and also an enum, and we will create also some properties associated to this class. We will set the type and the name and the multiplicity as well. We will also create an operation and we will define a relation between two model elements that we created. We will also have a stereotype that we will assign to one of those model elements that we created, and also set some tags with a value. I will talk about how to use the underlying system that is provided by MagicDraw by using of helper classes. They call them helper classes, which help you in all those operations that we talked before. And we'll talk a little bit about how to navigate in the documentation. In order to try this out, as we did previously, here is a link and here's the command that you can execute and download the source code for this lesson. And just follow the instruction in the README file, or you can go back to the first video when I showed you how to make a whole build. So when you are ready, you can just install a new plugin into your MagicDraw and restart it, and you can already see the action that I will present right now. So let's jump into the details. In order to do that, I created a meta model that is describing what we will do on a high level, the same way as I did it for the previous lesson. So we can go into Cameo, and here is this diagram that is representing what we will do later in the code. And so let's get started with this. So we have a custom plugin, as we had before, and of course we have some kind of model generator code, some code that is generating our model elements. Okay. We have an application. Application is representing MagicDraw basically, and it loads some plugins, and even our plugin that we just installed. And the application has a projects manager, so that is for managing the projects. So you can have open like multiple projects, and you can switch in between them like here. You see. So here I click here, and then I selected a project that I opened previously, and then I can switch back to the second project. And the project that is active is called, surprise, the active project. So project manager has a reference to lots of projects, or if there is nothing open, then of course 0. And if there is at least one project, then it has an active project. So a project is representing actually a project that contains the model and everything. And for each project, there exists a so-called elements factory. And using this elements factory, you can create the various elements. So we will need this. We'll need the project, we'll need this elements factory. As we talked about this earlier, we'll need some kind of session. So we need a session manager. And there is a class called model elements manager, which is a kind of helper class. I don't know why they did it like this way, but okay. So this is something that we will use as well. Now we will use some kind of utility classes, which are static. So you don't create an instance from them, you just use the methods that are inside those utility classes. This is a theoretical description, so technically it is not implemented like this, but in order to understand, you can think about that we have some kind of utility type of classes, and we use those three ones. The first one is a finder, and with the finder you can find somehow a model element inside your project. You can find an element by name or type or whatever. Then we use core helper. This is used for kind of basic operations like setting multiplicity and stuff like this. And we have a stereotypes helper that helps us working with stereotypes. So this is the high level description. So we will have this custom plugin, we will have this model generator code generating various model elements, which will have a reference to a session manager, another reference to the model elements manager, also some reference to the projects and the elements factory, and it will use those utility classes. There is actually no direct reference in a programmatically sense, because those are having more just like static classes, so I just added a static stereotype to them. So we have a browser action, and we configure it the same way as I described you in the previous video lesson. So the interesting part is that we have a browser action that is executed when we press those menu item, which retrieves the actual tree, and it gets the selected node. And if there is a node selected, which is a type of package, then we will kind of cast it as a package. And I just wrote a simple class called model structure generator, and which has a method called execute, and you can provide a package and it will create the model elements inside of that package. So this code is an example, so it was never intended to use it in production, so don't do that. More like just use it for learning purposes, and later we will have a structure that is more like production ready. So let's see what is inside in this model structure generator class. We have a constructor here, and the constructor gets three references, one for the project, second for the factory, and the third for the manager, the same way as we can see it in the model. So we have a manager, project, and factory. Okay, and we have a method called execute, to which we provide the package. So we tell, okay, please run, and your root is this package, and do whatever you need. And in order to do any kind of operations, we need to create a session. And a session is representing a kind of transaction, a series of operations, and we want them to work the following way. If there is no error, then all those things are done. But if there is an error, some kind of problem inside our code, by whatever reason, we want to cancel all those things that we did. And programmatically, we can do it the following way. We can get an instance from this session manager and tell, okay, please create a session. We need to provide a project and some kind of text as well. And then we will do our operations, and at the end we'll close the session, and that commits all those operations that we did. If, however, there is some kind of error, some kind of exception, then we can log this exception and cancel the session. And basically that's it. So this is how session management is done. There is a way longer description in the MagicDraw documentation, but for starter, I think that's enough. So let's see what we do here in this method called create model element. So probably we'll create some kind of model element, can make sense. And what we do here is we'll create a class called first class, We'll add property to this first class. We'll add an operation to this first class. We also create an enumeration, and we'll create a second class. We'll add stereotype to the second class. We'll add the enumeration also to the second class, and we'll create a relationship in between the first class and the second class. So again, this is not a production code. This is just for demonstration purposes. So no, we don't do it like this way. I mean, at the very details we do, but we don't structure our code like this way. This was for easier to understand what we will do. So let's see our first method. So how to create a new class. So what we want to have here is, now we switch to this project. So we will want to create like this one, and first just this class. So at the end result we want to have something like third class. So basically this kind of operation without the block. This is what we want to achieve. So here where this factory comes into play. So in order to create a model element, just a model element, you need to use the factory. And the factory has lots of create whatever methods. So if we like go here, so we just factory dot create. You see there are so many create things. So you can create like a interface instance, or a merge node, or a profile, or a whatever read action, read variable action. So all those are instances of the UML meta model that we can create. Those methods are parameterless. So when you create like a class instance, or an instance from the UML class, then you need to set the various properties, like set the name. So we'll set just the name, and by doing this is just creating an object kind of in memory. So we need to kind of add it in really inside our model, and the way we can do that is use the manager, and the manager has a method called add element. With add element you can add any kind of model element to some parent. So that means this is about more like the ownership. So if I create a new block here, I can call it like test, that's it, and you will see that it has an owner, and actually this package is its owner. So this ownership has always to be set. If it's not set, then you will not see anything in the model. So we have here something not parent but owner, and as you see, the owner is the package. So I need to set this owner, and I can do it like this way. And we'll just return this class for further use. So this is how you create a class, and you of course have various set properties, so like set active or set abstract or whatever you want. So the next thing we want to do is to add a property. So I'll just remove this from here because it's not needed. So we want to have a property, and it has a name, it has a type, and it is a multiplicity. So we need to set all three things. And of course, as before, it also has some kind of owner. So in order to create a property, we'll use the factory, and factory will create as an instance of this UML property. We'll set the name, we set the type that we will find somehow, that we talk about it a little bit later, and then here we use this helper class, as I talked about earlier, which has a method called setMultiplicity, which has a lower bound and an upper bound and a kind of target. So as you can see, this is a static method, so we don't need to create an instance from this core helper. We just write core helper dot and whatever. and this is how we can set the multiplicity. At the end, we also need to set this ownership, so this property will be owned by this class. So if we go like here, hopefully write owner, you see the owner is the first class. So this is something we need to do. And there is one thing that we also need to do, is to find the string, the type. So we need to find this type. So normally when you create, in the MagicDraw, maybe a second property, and I press Ctrl and space, and here I can write like integer or whatever I want, like string. But of course, when you write some code, you need to find it the same way you did it by using the editor's capabilities, but now you have to do it programmatically. And the way to do that is to use the finder. And the finder has various methods like by qualified name, and the qualified name is can be used to find model element inside the project by the qualified name. This is the qualified name. So if we go to the string, so we can go like specification and type and selecting complement 3, and hopefully, yeah, this is found here. You see, so this is in the UML meta model. It's defined as a primitive type. This is a string, and this is the qualified name. So you just basically copy and paste it there. This is how you can find a model element. Of course, this is just one way. So you can have like finder.by name, or by name recursively, or by name all, or by scope, or by type. So like you can like by name dot find, and then you can define some kind of root and the type, and of course the name that you'd like to find. There is some documentation about how to use those finder inside the MagicDraw development guide as well. So you can read about it a little bit more. We'll go into more details at the end of this video. So this is how you can actually create a property. It's really straightforward when you know all those tricks. And then we'll create an operation as well. So in order to create an operation, we use the factory exactly the same way. We set the name of this operation, and we ask the manager to add this element. Here you might see some interesting stuff that we had also before, that it might throw a read-only element exception. So that means that if you want to modify an element, of course you need to lock it. And if it's not locked, it's read-only, then there will be some kind of problem that you need to handle. So the add operation method has the same. Oh, sorry, not the add operation method, but the add element manager tells us that yes, that might happen, and we need to handle this exception. So you see, the signature is add element, and it throws this kind of exception. And this is why actually we have here this try and catch clause here. So if anything is like logged or something, it's read-only, then we will catch this problem, and then we will undo everything that we did before. So we cancel the kind of the session, the transaction. So we created a class, we added a property, and we also added an operation. So the next thing we want to create is an enumeration, and this is very, very similar to what we did before. It's a little bit longer, but in order to create an enumeration, we need to create an instance of this enumeration by using the factory. We'll set the name, and we want to add those enumeration literals into the enumeration. So for the people who don't know, the enumeration literal is like E, B, and C. Those are enumeration literals. So and I can create a new one like D. That's it. And if we select this item, you see this is of the type of enumeration literal, which has a name of D. So the way we do that is we define a list of strings, and we iterate over those list of strings, and we create an enumeration literal instance, and which has a type or a specification of a value specification, and the value is of course matching the name like A, and we set the specification, and we also set the name, and we also set the enumeration for this literal, and basically that's it. So again, we create an enumeration, we create some literal, we set the enumeration for this literal. Here we cannot use the manager.addElement because of whatever reasons. So if you want to do if you want to create some kind of enumerations, just refer this code, basically copy paste and use it. But at the end, we need to add this enumeration to our package, and so we use the manager.addElement method as we used earlier. And so this is how you create an enumeration. And then we create a second class using the same method that we used for the first one. This is the same, and we will add an enumeration. We talk about first about this add enumeration because it's easier. So we'll create the same property, we'll set the name, and the type will just be the enumeration, and here we set the multiplicity, and tell the manager that add this property to the class. And I skipped one part, or actually two. The first one is add stereotype. So what we want to see here, that this my stereotype is to be assigned to this class. So I created a profile because stereotypes has to be put into a profile, and it's just called my stereotype. Very tricky name. It has a name actually which is of a type string. So it's a very simple stereotype, but nevertheless it's great for demonstration purposes. So if we check this code, this add stereotype to the class, so what we want to do is somehow we want to find the stereotype, we want to assign it to this class, and we want to set the tags, this name to like hello. So those are the three steps that we want to do. How to do it? The first is we need to find the profile. So we will use here the stereotypes helper. So those are the helper classes. So we use stereotypes helper.get profile, where we can define our project and the name of the profile. It will return a reference to this profile. So far so good. So inside the profile we want to find the stereotype. So we'll turn to the stereotypes helper again and ask for a stereotype. We need to provide a project, the profile, and the name of the stereotype that we want to have a reference to. So we have this stereotype, and that's great. So the third thing is that we already have the stereotype, we have the class, so we want to add the stereotype to the class. So again, stereotype is for a rescue. We call add stereotype method for this class, and we provide the stereotype, and that's it. So there is one thing that we are missing, is to set this tag value. So right now we already have a class, a stereotype assigned to it, and we want to set this name to hello. And the way we can do that, there is always a helper method for basically everything that we call the set stereotype property value method, where we can define a class and a stereotype and the kind of field of the stereotype and value that we want to set. And basically that's it. So this is how you assign a stereotype to a class. And last but not least, we want to create a relation, and it will be like kind of familiar that we will use again the factory to create a dependency. So create dependency instance. And we use a core helper method called set supplier element and set client element. So the thing is that you can create a relation. The relation has kind of two parts, a kind of source and the target. So it is connecting two things together, and one is the source and one is the target, and one is called the client, the other is called the supplier. So what we want to do is set the supplier, so one part of the relation, and the client as well, which is the second part of the relation. So we use core helper for it. You need to define this kind of connection. So in this case, a dependency. And we say here, state that the supplier is the first class. And then in the next line, we say that, okay, the client for this relation is the second class. And we are not done yet because we need to set the owner of the dependency, which will be the parent package. So we can do it like this way. I'm just thinking about maybe we could have used manager add element, and the signature is dependency and parent package, and it also works. So we can do it like even like this way. So actually, the manager.add element is a very simple method. It just sets the owner like this one line of code, but it has lots of checks. So if something is not editable, then it throws this exception, or if there is this exception, then it throws another one. So it's more like a kind of like a helper class. It, I don't really understand why it's not written like a normal helper class, but nevertheless, this is how it's done. Probably they have the reasons why they did it like this way. So basically that's it. So to summarize everything that what we did, go back to the model here. So we had our custom plugin, we had a model generator code. So this was this model structure generator class, which got some references to various objects like a session manager and model elements manager and the project and the elements factory. And by using all those items, we created a session and we created some model elements by using the factory, and we used the core helper to set some basic values. When we had to use some stereotypes, we used the stereotypes helper, and when we had to find some kind of model elements, we used the finder. And this is how we build up our model elements using code. So basically that's for now. So like in each and every of my videos, there is some networking information. So if you have any kind of questions, really feel free to contact me at the following addresses, my email address or LinkedIn or even my webpage. And I am really happy to help you and answer all your questions. So thank you very much for your attention and see you next time.